out and I'll send it to you. And we're good.
All right. Well, Bruce, thanks for hopping on tonight. My name is Neil Hoover. For those who are on, I'm the vice president of sales with Orthify. We're the parent company for Comprehensive Finance, which became a partner of ours, or was part of an acquisition here. I believe, what was it, May of last year? It's when all this came together.
Yep.
So where Bruce joined the team. So to get started tonight, our guest, I'll be the host, and Bruce will be our who we're going to ask a couple of questions. He's our founder for Compassionate Finance and Comprehensive Finance. But let me kick it off here with just a brief intro here on Bruce, and then we'll dive right in. So Dr. Bruce Baird is the founder of the Productive Dentist Academy, a company that has worked with thousands of dentists from all 50 states and over 17 countries over the last 17 years, with a focus on dental prosperity. His philosophy is that prosperity is a prerequisite for clinical excellence. Dr. Baird is also the founder of Compassionate Finance, a company started 11 years ago to give dentists an alternative to third-party financing and open up wealth opportunities for dentists they never had before. Dr. Baird graduated from the University of Texas Dental School in 1980, invited to speak and at professional conferences throughout the world on topics ranging from full mouth reconstruction and implant dentistry to the business of dentistry and productivity. He's an honored fellow of the Academy, American Academy of Implant Dentistry, a diplomat of the International Congress of Oral Implantology, and a fellow of the Academy of General Dentistry. So thanks again, Dr. Baird, for joining us tonight.
You bet. That's quite the intro. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm
tired. I'm tired just thinking about it, so it's good. It's good. Yeah.
I'd say you put in a lot of years of work and energy to get there, but
42 years, I figure that's okay. I want to do it for another 42. Not sure I'm going to make that, but you never know. You might see me doing webinars at 104. So I actually did a full mouth rehab on a dental patient with implants, and he was 101. Most people cannot believe that, but I've got pictures to prove it. And he said, as long as I'm alive, I want to have the best I can get. And, he was 101. He lived to be 103. And he asked, the one question he asked was, if I pay in advance, what happens if I die? And I just said, just pay as you go. Don't worry about it. So that was our deal.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, to kick us off, Dr. Baird, why don't you tell us why you founded Compassionate Finance or Comprehensive Finance, and specifically the Compassionate Finance piece?
It was a difficult time back in 2008 with the big bubble and the economy blowing up. And I started looking at, I was actually coming back from a meeting in Dallas, and my partner, Jeff Buski, asked a very simple question. He just said, do you think we could finance people for orthodontics if, excuse me, if they put $2,000 down? And I was like, and we're driving in a car, and I asked him, well, how much does it cost us? I mean, what's our cost? And he said about $415. And I said, what do we charge? He goes, $6,000. I went, whoa, well, that's a pretty nice deal. Excuse me. And then I immediately started thinking about, well, CERAC, for instance. I was been a big CERAC user, and I got a $30 block, and I'm charging $1,500 for a crown or $1,200 for a crown, and I'm letting people leave without doing treatment. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. And then I got home, and I love Excel spreadsheets. So I get these Excel spreadsheets out, and I start figuring out why don't we do our own financing? Why do dentists not? And there's three main reasons. Number one was, well, we don't know how. That's the number one reason. Number two, we've been told not to do it by third-party financing, banks. You don't want to be the financing guy. And then the third big question is, what if they don't pay us? And so I started running these interest scenarios, and I started realizing that a dentist will very easily, well, they don't like to, but they'll discount their fees 40% to get in a PPO that sends them patients. And then they complain about a patient that is a fee-for-service patient that might only get a 95% success rate as far as payments. And I'm like, 95% success compared to a 40% discount. And so I kept running these numbers, and I started realizing you could literally make more money than you could ever make by helping people get the dentistry needed. And the problem is you have to wait for your payments. You know, the payments come in. So you're doing in-office financing, but you get to share in the interest. Yep. And I was joking with a friend today, and we were talking about business and money. And I said, you know, when I go play high limit blackjack in Vegas, I'm not usually with dentists. I'm usually with car dealers and pawn shop guys. And we all laugh because they understand interest. Yes. And somebody very easily is going to say, well, I'd rather do care credit. I'm going to do a 10% discount. And it's going to be a 10% discount. So on $10,000, they're going to give me $9,000. I'll take my money. This is great. But yet 60% of the patients don't even get approved for care credit. So my question is always to doctors, well, what happens if they're not approved? What do you do? And they always look at me with this blank stare like, well, I don't know. Well, pay as you go, third to third. Could your parents co-sign and no, you know, whatever. But there was no real solution. And that was kind of the birth of compassionate finance. I worked with a firm out of Austin, a large attorney firm, which we researched what are the rules. And the rules are different in all 50 states. Right. So we invested a lot of money in that. And we found out what the rules were. And then what I realized was, you know, yes, we should be the bank. You actually make more money if you're the bank. Why do we know that? Because they have the biggest buildings in every major city in the country. And so you just look at that and you say, well, they must be doing something right. And the final piece to the puzzle that continually I get asked that question, well, what if they don't pay us? And I'll use an example of the E patient, the worst patient. They're the lowest, you know, they're the lowest credit rating patients. They're 550 and below. And I started looking at them and they're paying, say, 18% interest. We know statistically that about 20% of them default. And so I was looking at that and saying, well, gosh, that's horrible. But run your calculator and figure if 80% of these people pay full term at 18% interest, you're actually killing it. So the one person who defaults, their loan is actually paid by the interest off of the 4 that didn't default. Right. And again, dentists have been taught, we've been taught, and I was taught, and I stood in front of the room and told people, don't be the bank until compassionate finance came around. And now, we've done over 300 million in notes just for dentists in their offices, and we do all the back end support. And so that was the kind of the birth of the whole thing. I just knew that I had patients that weren't able to do the dentistry, and you know, and I'm not worried whether they're rich or poor. Right. I just know statistics. I know metrics, and when I look at metrics, I know what works. And I didn't know it when we started. It was a total bare ass guess. I had no clue if it was going to work or not, but I had a good feeling. I ran through the data and I ran through all the statistics, and you know what? They came true within 3%. You know, from the way we originally thought of it to the time where we have now done 300 million in notes.
Yeah, well, it worked out, you know, great for the practice and for from a number standpoint, but there's another aspect of the patient, the access to care that patients got.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, again, what happens to a patient when they don't get approved for care credit or some third-party financing? They go to the cheapo depot, you know, because they'd like for you to do the work for them, but you don't have any financial arrangements for them that work. Pay me a third, you know, and a third. So you've got $10,000 worth of work. Give me 2,500, 3,000 now, 3,000 in the middle, and 3,000 when we finish. The only problem with that is they don't. The average person in America only has 4,000 in their checking account, right. Period, in their savings. And so that's not an answer. You know, how do you buy a car? You know, right. You buy it with monthly payments, and so we know it works. But we also recommend, and this is the kicker, when you're doing compassionate finance, you got to get a down payment to cover whatever your hard costs are. And when you cover your hard costs, then it becomes time. What is your time value? In other words, what's my time worth as a dentist? We know the average dentist is $425 an hour, producing $3,400 a day. That's the average. When I quit practicing clinical dentistry 2 years ago, I was producing $4,300 an hour, not $4,300 a day, $4,300 an hour. Why? Because we will be able to help everybody. I don't care if they're a migrant farm worker down in the pecan orchard here where I live, or whether they drive a crystal blue Mercedes. I don't care. And the truth is, I've been hosed by more people with crystal blue Mercedes than I ever have by migrant farm workers down in the pecan orchard. And so by giving people options that make sense, making it affordable, that's very different than price. And price is an interesting concept. Everybody's fighting their way to the bottom. You can't win that way. You're just not going to win that way. And so I don't worry about price. What I worry about is monthly payment. And so what kind of car would you be driving if you had to pay cash for it? I know I would not be driving a $95,000 LS 460 if I had to pay $95,000 cash. I just wouldn't be. I would be driving an old beat up, truck or something. And because why? I can make monthly payments.
Yeah.
And it fits in my budget. And so that's really was the kind of the birth of the entire thought process. And we know, yes, there are going to be people that default, but I got the hard costs covered.
Right.
So my time value goes up. And I always say that if you take a dentist from doing $425 an hour to $1,000 an hour, and let's say he's doing financing on 5 patients a month or 6 patients a month, just a couple a week, maybe. Will they ever go back to would they ever want to go back to making 425? They don't.
No.
They never want to go back because they're creating revenue. They're creating what's called debt paper. And it is a signed contract. The patient's paying them every month. They get to share in the interest. And so it's, that's the concept behind the whole deal.
Yeah. And where it came together. So thanks for sharing. And what we wanted to do tonight was take a little bit of a spin on the concept of compassionate finance and what it is, and get into some of the best practices when it comes to implementation.
Sure.
So what we found with a number of our customers who've signed up is after we get through the technical how-to, here's how you access the platform and turn it on. Basically it gets into a conversation of what are the next steps to actually implementing this into my practice, and a lot of the best practices around implementation to really turn it into that revenue generating engine that you were describing. So that's where we want to spend a little bit of time tonight diving into that. And I know you've framed up some of these concepts in the past, and so we'll touch on them and allow you to really dive in a little bit more on what these mean. So let's start off with the first concept you've talked about before with compassionate finance, and that's revisiting unscheduled treatment plans. What does that mean, and why is that a good place to start when it comes to implementing compassionate finance in practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the perfect place to start. I always tell people it's the perfect place to be able to talk to patients in a different way. These are people who said no to treatment, and I can promise you there's only 2 reasons they said no. And I tell this to dentists as I talk to them individually. I go, they either said no because they don't like you, or because you didn't have good financial arrangements. That's it. Which one is it, doc? They go, well, they like me. And so I said, okay, well, let's get some decent financial arrangements for them. It can't be just third-party financing, because you're leaving 60% of the people out of the mix. And so, and something else very interesting, all dentists in the country are all fighting for the same 40% of the population that have money. And you would think, well, of course, why wouldn't we? But who's helping the 60%ers? Who's helping a normal, hardworking person? Nobody. And so if you don't have good arrangements for them, pay a down payment of $300 or $400, and we'll work out convenient monthly payments of $100 a month. And when you don't have those options, what happens? They all end up in your unscheduled treatment. So now you start compassionate finance, and I would suggest not sending out a blanket letter to all of your AR, because the average dental practice in the country probably has $1 million to $1.5 million in AR. A large practice like mine, probably not AR, sorry, treatment pending. We probably have 6 million rolling through. I know we have we did a survey, 583,000 a month coming through hygiene that was work that was treatment plan, but never done. And so that's where you go and you say, and that's just hygiene. What about all the others that aren't coming back because they left and said, I can't afford you, you're too expensive. But when you have treatment options that make sense, all of a sudden patients are going, yes, I can do that. Yes, I got 500 I can put down. I just can't put 6,000 down,
Right.
And so treatment pending, I would say, take all your treatment pending, divide it up into, 6 months and start sending out letters saying, hey, you've been pre-approved for financing, and see how many of them come in. I promise you, you'll not only fill up your schedule, but it'll be filled up with more down payments. We had one office in North Carolina. In the first year, they did over $1 million in paper with compassionate finance. That year, the down payments they got from patients was more than they produced the year previous.
Mm-hmm.
The down payments were more than they totally produced. So this is something that it works. We know it works now because we've been doing it for 10, 11 years. And it's something that is the ideal place to start, is with treatment pending.
Treatment pending. Cool. We've also heard you talk about team-driven productivity. How does that connect here with compassionate finance and implementation?
My favorite productivity in the dental office is stuff I don't do, meaning I don't have to do it. I can say Invisalign. I go in there, I got 30 minutes of my time. Maybe I'm bonding on a few things or whatever, but bottom line is it's team driven. Sleep apnea treatments, team driven. Occlusal therapy, a lot of that's team driven. And in Texas, we can't do, we don't have expanded duty anything, but anything my team can do, I want to approve every single patient, as long as they pay for the hard costs and my team's the one producing it. What if they paid 500 down for Invisalign, or which not Invisalign, but for clear aligners, or for $500 for a sleep appliance? They put 500 down. Well, that's my cost. And now I've got 5,500 or 4,000 that they're going to pay in monthly payments. And my team is doing all the work. What if they don't pay? Shucks, I hate that. But I'm not going to go ballistic. I'm not going to go crazy because I got my hard costs covered. My team is producing revenue. They're producing money every single day, every single month. And the payments come to me day in and day out. And you know what? It's money that you weren't going to be treating anyway. This is all money that was walking out the door to go to the cheapo depot. That's where they were headed. They're looking for the $400 crown, but they really want the $1,200 crown. They really want to be at your office. The problem is we just don't have the arrangements for them.
Yep.
That's it.
No, that makes sense. The treatment plans that they get scheduled, utilizing the team and the team concept and what they are driving from a productivity standpoint. Abby, you want to weigh in here? I know we got some additional in-office patient tools to help support this when it comes to
best practices
and where to start. What else do we have?
Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, like you said, we have resources. We have a letter template. Dr. Baird, you said, hey, split it up into months and use this outreach that we have that has really great verbiage. We can customize it with a unique QR code. So all your patients have to do is scan that, and they can actually submit the application from home. It makes it so much easier for you. We basically give you the tools. You just have to use it for the outreach. So we have things like that. We have the QR code flyer, which would be available in the office, but you could also use that as an outreach tool as well. So we have a lot of resources that are customized to the practice so that we can make it unique and make it work for them. So yeah, we have a lot of resources up our sleeves, like digital marketing that we can provide. We have graphics, we have the verbiage for the outreach, just ready to send it. So yeah, just all of those resources.
And if anybody has a question as we're going, you can go down and I guess into the Q&A section at the bottom and just ask a question. If you have a question that says, Bruce, you're crazy, I don't know why, just ask that, because some people say
that. Cool. Thanks for pointing out, Bruce. Just as you referenced there at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you just click on the Q&A button and feel free to go ahead and type in anything if you want. We got a nice intimate crowd tonight, so happy to look at and address any questions you may have. So just to summarize that first section there, when it comes to implementing compassionate finance, And a best practice or a place to start, we always like to think of it as, are you clear on who you're targeting? And we just laid out a couple of examples here on, you got unscheduled treatment plans as a place to start. What's the message? Do you have your message down? And as Abby just referenced, we got some tools to help with the message and to really simplify it, even to the tune of there's a QR code. They just turn their phone on and it'll bring them, link them back into your practice. And then the third piece is, how do you operationalize it, or how do you make it come to life? And that's the piece where, as dental office, you know how to handle that. You get them back in the office, they're ready to say yes and have accepted the case, and then you can take and get them in the works. And to Bruce's point, cover your hard costs up front, and you're going to
that's all you got to do, really. And then the rest is, people will say, yeah, but what are my hard costs? And I said, well, I've got team, I've got electricity, I've got everything else. I go, you got that, you've got that, whether you do this or not. I mean, if this patient leaves, you're still going to have team there, and you're still going to have electricity costs. Get your hard costs for the material and lab costs. You do that, you're in great shape. You're going to do wonderful.
Yeah, and Bruce, I don't know if you saw that come in through the chat. That was it's pretty directly related to one of the questions. How do you handle paying associates on production? So this is, think of your dental associates, paying your associates on production that won't be collected for months or years.
Yep, yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it comes up a lot. I'll tell you what I personally would do. We've got doctors doing it 8 or 10 different ways. But what I'll tell you is, let me just see. Who asked the question?
That's John.
It was John. Okay, John. There are several ways to do it. I'll tell you what I would do. Your associate is used to getting 90 cents on the dollar if a third-party financing paid. So if third-party financing, let's just say they did $10,000 worth of work, you only get 9,000 in. So you're paying them on that collectible amount. You can do the same thing with associates by saying, I'm going to pay you, but on subprime paper, meaning not the A patient or the B, which you can do compassionate finance on A, B, C, D, or E, the worst credit and the best credit. But you set up a sliding scale, meaning you're going to get the paper. You're going to get paper at a discount. The doctor's going to do all the work, your associate, and you're getting a down payment to cover the hard costs. So what you're going to do is, you're talking about a great investment. The average loans that doctors are doing is around $4,000. But let's say it's an E patient. Would they do the work if they only got paid on $3,000? That's a 25% reduction on an E. And we've got guys that only pay, take a 30% reduction. And so what you're doing is you're actually paying your associate just as if it was a discount from Care Credit or from whoever, Green Sky. And that's the way you can do it. So will you be able to pay them based on it because you're getting money over a period of time? The down payments are going to cover it. You might say, I want instead of a normal just cover my hard costs, which usually is anywhere from 10 to 20%, you may say on these patients, I want a 35% down payment. Plus, I'm going to get the paper at a discount. So I'm going to buy that paper at 30 cents on the dollar or at 70 cents on the dollar. Trust me, you will make a fortune having, I'd have 5 associates doing it for me all day long. I'd never turn down a patient. Why? Because the amount of revenue coming in would be ridiculous. And you'd be able to pay them. And usually it's about a 7-month swing. It takes about 7 months at that discounted rate for every time you have a check coming in every month. It's covering now your total associate fee. What you're paying them on a monthly amount, you may be paying them 10, 12, 14,000. By the time you've been doing this for 7 months, you got money coming in. You don't even care. Just keep making me money. And more importantly than that, keep taking care of people. Keep helping people that need help. It just always kills me when I see somebody has to go to the cheapo depot to have work done. I just hate that. I'd rather have it in my office and do it the way we do it. So I don't know if that answers your question, John, but I will. You can send me questions, bruce@productivedentist.com. I'll get into more details with you about what some other guys are doing, but I do think Well, first of all, it's the question that I would be asking if I'm an owner doc with an associate. But you can have them working all day long, because think about downtime that an associate has. I mean, the average just regular dental office has 23% of their time open. I personally think it's closer to 50% of their downtime.
Yeah.
But what about these associates? I want them drilling, filling, prepping. I want them doing it all day long as I'm getting my hard costs covered. And trust me, it will be the best investment you ever make, because you can put your money in your 401k, you can put your money over here and hope to get 4%, 5%, 6%. But you're doing this, you're making 16%, 18% on your money. And we're not even counting the discount. We're just literally counting on interest. So I hope that answered it. Give me a thumbs up if that did it. But again, send me any questions you have straight to me.
Yeah, no, and to your point, Bruce, that's a fair question. And I like how you characterize it as, at least, maybe to start, you start off a little higher on those that your associate are doing, 25, 30%. Gives you a little bit more air cover, and you brought up a real relevant point here, that you're only doing that, or have to do it, for a handful of months, because after you get past about 7 months, the amount of revenue you got coming in on a regular basis
Is actually paying for your associates for free. So I mean, you don't even have to worry about it again. Now your guys, you just want them to keep working, stay busy. That's it. I know I've had we had 3 associates at the office, and I've had 9 or 10 associates over 38 years. And man, I wish I'd have had this back then.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Let's shift gears a little bit. And actually, another question came in from John. Do you allow the patients to use their expected insurance coverage as their down payments?
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, if they happen to have insurance, I'm gonna use a scenario, John. Let's say this is the common scenario. Hey, Bob, you need $6,000 worth of work, whether it's 6 crowns, whether it's whatever it is, you need $6,000 worth of work. Patient always says, well, how much will my insurance cover? And we go, well, it's going to cover $1,500. Your portion is going to be $4,500. And we know that as far as crowns are concerned, 9 out of 10 crowns are done in the US one at a time. Now, if anybody listening here had 6 crowns that need to be done, I know myself personally, I want it done in one appointment, period. I'll use CAD/CAM dentistry. I'll have it done in a single visit, but maybe 2. But nobody wants to do 6 crowns in 12 visits. But that's what's being done every day, 90% of the time in the United States. So what does that mean? That means the insurance company, which they have a benefit of $1,500. The patient says, can I just do one? And now the insurance company has to pay $500 or $600, $700, half the cost. And the patient has to come out of pocket $500 or $600. Well, that automatically causes a little bit of stress for the patient, some patients more than others. But what I do is I tell them, why don't we do this? I say, yes, we could do just one, but my whole team is trained. And they just say, well, we could do that, Bob, but why don't we do this? Why don't we use your insurance as a down payment, $1,500, which is actually a whole lot more than you were going to. That's actually more money, cash coming from the insurance company that you were going to make by doing 1 crown. And now you get to do the other 5 crowns financed at $138 a month, $152 a month. I can tell you that the years that I've used compassionate finance, I have never had a patient say no to that, ever, not one. It's just how you verbally request it and talk to them. They don't go, well, I don't want to pay that interest. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. They want to get their work done and they want you to do it. You just don't have any options for them. And so by having these options, so you got the right deal, take the insurance as a down payment. That group I was telling you about that did more in down payments was a really high PPO insurance driven practice in North Carolina. And again, they did $1 million. Why? Because they could do most all the dentistry. If it's $1,500 and you're getting 20% down, I mean, I just usually will multiply by 5 and say, if they got $1,500 insurance, I can do $7,500 worth of dentistry on them and never worry a bit. And if I'm doing a CERAC for 6 crowns, I mean, I got $180 in it. I got $180 and it's done today. you will make more money as a dentist. You'll be make more money than 99% of all the dentists in the country, just by allowing people to be able to pay. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Speaking of Sarah, you want to expand on the link between, adopting technology into your practice and compassionate finance?
The thing is, there are a lot of, I'll talk about technology, one of them being CEREC, another being like the periolays, doing periolase surgery. I charge like $7,000 or $8,000 to use a periolase. People say, yeah, it's so expensive, $110,000 or whatever it is. Or I'm going to use the another laser. I'll tell you in a minute, Fatana. And so I'm going to use this. I'm going to do LANAP surgery. It's costing me a piece of fiber like this. That's probably about 80 cents worth of fiber. And I'm doing $8,000 worth of dentistry. Now I'm pretty much free to tell people, and it takes me 2 hours to do full mouth surgery. Well, I'm sitting here looking at this going, it takes me 2 hours. It actually doesn't take me that long because my team works in part of this, but I'm like, why wouldn't I finance that all day long? It doesn't cost me that. If I get $1,500 down, $2,000, what if a patient said, well, I can't afford $8,000? They said, I said, well, I certainly understand. How much do you think it was going to be? Well, I thought it might be 4 or 5. No worries. We can use 4,000 or 5,000 as a down payment. We'll finance the rest. So it's smart to use technology that makes sense. There's some technology that's very costly. Mm-hmm. And you really aren't making the return like you do with, say, CAD/CAM dentistry, like you do with lasers, like you do with, I'm not going to say Invisalign because their lab costs are pretty high, but if you're a really big provider for Invisalign, your costs get down pretty reasonable. So you can actually use that as a down payment, but you get to do much more dentistry. And will somebody default on you? Will they fail? Yeah, they will. I can promise you it's going to happen. But the interest off the ones who pay cover for the ones that don't. And you can look at your dashboard every single month. Or you can look at weekly. Most dentists don't ever look at it. And they have one patient default and they go, oh man, this compassionate finance suck. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I go, wait a minute, come off the ledge. Let's look at your dashboard. And that dashboard will show you that you're actually making 104% of your usual and customary fee. And remember, that patient was leaving. That patient was going down the street to the cheapo depot. They weren't having you do the work. And so your chair's open. And how does that work for you business-wise? Not very well. So that's the deal there.
Yeah, we were looking at the numbers overall on an entire book of business, and right now our offices are averaging 106% payment on the loans that they put out there. Wow. So that's net our fees and delinquencies too.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, where people would gladly take a 10% discount, now you pick up a 6% positive. So that's 16% better. If you can have an investment where you can get a 16% return, better than what you've been taught to do, why do they teach us this? Why do they teach us to go for the 12 months interest free? Why do they tell us that? Because that's the most money they make. It's the least amount of risk. They're only giving it to A's and B's. They default at less than 1/2%, or they default at like 1.5 to 2. So it's very much there. And the question about, do I ever combine it? You can do that. Good news, John, I love your questions, buddy. Thank you. Good news is we're coming out with Compassionate 2.0 here in the next quarter, probably in the next 3 months. And you won't have to do an application for both. You can do one application, one app, and you'll have some of it that will be funded. You can choose. I want this to be funded. Now, if it's an e-patient, we know they default at 20%. You might take a 25% discount on an e-patient. So you may be able to get cash of $7,500 on $10,000. Or you can say, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do compassionate. I'd rather carry my own paper. So you're going to have an option to have one app, get 95% of the people approved, and be paid on them if you want. If you don't want to take the big discount, you can take it yourself. If you're taking a 25% discount compared to a 6% profit. Now you're talking, 30% difference. Is that a problem? Some people need cash. Some people in their practice, things are happening and they need cash. This gives you the opportunity not just to get cash on the A and Bs from third party, but it'll allow you to get cash from the Cs, the Ds, the Es, if that's what you need. I personally, I would rather do compassionate finance and get a 106 than I would take the discount, but everybody's different and everybody has a different situation. And I love this because yes, right now we have docs that are doing both. They'll do care credit if they get approved, not for the full amount, which is often, depending upon your service mix. And then I'm going to have compassionate finance as a backup, and then they apply for that. So our goal since we sold the company to AKKR, one of the largest private equity groups in the world. And my goal was, the reason I did that was because I knew they would have additional bandwidth that they could help us to do this, what we're talking about, because I know when we solve that issue, we'll be the #1 financing company in dentistry, period. And it's going to happen fairly soon. We do $3 to $4 million a month every month in office payments. When we finish this deal, we'll be doing 30 to 40 million a month. Why? Because every dentist is going to want it. Okay.
When you think about it from an office perspective, and I've heard you talk about this a number of times, you got to implement solutions that your team will do.
Right.
And when you start talking about, I use this for this patient and this for this patient, you really complicate things.
Yeah, people, you start doing wallet biopsies on people. You start looking at them going, well, they're not going to get approved for care credit, so let's just do compassionate. I want to have one app that you can do one time. And how does that sound, John? I mean, we'll get a response here in a bit. So let's keep going.
Yeah. What other best practices come to mind when it comes to implementing compassionate finance, either for the first time or if you've been doing it for a month or two? What are additional best practices you like to think about?
Initially when you're first starting with patients, you may want to offer your care credit. You may want to offer compassionate finance. I'm okay with that. But as you start to build up your revenue coming in every month, which I call that pandemic proofing your practice, because during the pandemic, we had doctors that were bringing in $25,000 a month off of work they did 2 years ago. And so, but now you're actually, as you're building this monthly revenue coming in, you start to wean yourself off third party. Why? Because I don't want to take a 10% discount. I've got money coming in. Why don't I just get the full 106 instead of 90? And so it changes to me, that's best practices. We have a lot of docs. We don't have 2.0 yet, but we have a lot of docs that don't offer any third party. Everything, because they understand that 16%. That 16% return is huge. It's huge. It changes your life. Plus, it opens up the treatment for 60% more patients. 60% more patients you get to treat. So to me, this is, and I've been preaching this for 11 years. It's the biggest no-brainer on earth. I mean, if you want to have a business that is paying you even when you're not working, the average dentist only takes a week off, and that's all, because they can't afford it, because they have team, they have electricity, they have that. Well, what if you're bringing in $35,000 a month, $40,000 a month? I'm taking 2 weeks off. I'm taking 3 weeks off. And you know how I position it? I position 10 days at the end of 1 month and 10 days at the beginning of the other, because I want my production and collections to be consistent month in and month out. But that's something we teach at Productive Dentist Academy. That's a little bit different than CF.
Gotcha. No, that's it's a smart approach, and to your point, it allows you to really ensure that you're getting good consistency on a month-to-month, especially as a small business owner, because that's how you're looking at it.
Yep, no question. But that's what I love doing.
Well, great. Well, we're coming up to 45 minutes here. So, any additional questions that are coming from the group, that'd be great. Bruce, any other, best practices, again, when it comes to implementation, I think a number of the individuals that are online have heard about compassionate finance or seen bits and pieces, but this is an opportunity, like I said, to dive into implementation. So any additional thoughts or comments here?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear, there's a lot of people out there that are, yeah, we do financing on 100% of the people, and we pay you. We're going to do 100% of your patients. We're not going to do a credit check, and we're going to pay you cash. All I can tell you is I've got land, oceanfront property in Arizona that it is cheap and it'll work, because I promise you, they come and they go. We actually have them call us after they screwed the pooch, and all of a sudden they are upside down. Their company's going under, and guess what they do? They call us. Can you service our loans? They call them compassionate finance, and we very kindly say no, we can't, because the way it was presented to those patients, we just can't do that. And why would we? And so it's something that it's very successful. It works. It's very different than what any of you have been taught. It was very different than what I've been taught. But when you look at the facts, when you look at the truth, not all the BS that's out there, when you look at the truth, helping more people day in and day out get the work that they need is going to make your business better. So it's what we call it PDA. We call it doing good while doing good. I make more money and I help more people. That's the way it should be. When I first started doing really well in dentistry, I mean, my dad, he was a hard worker, and, he lost his job the month before I graduated from high school. He said, "Good luck, son." So I grew up that way. But when I look at the opportunity to help everybody, at least 95% of them, and do the dentistry that they need at whatever pace they need to do it at, if that's not a win-win, I don't know what is. And I love it. I've used it. We probably have, I don't know, $1 million worth of paper out there now, maybe a little bit less than that. So, that would be my deal. Is we know it works. We've used it for years. It's just different than what we've been taught. And I think there's an old saying, and I can't even say it. I need to put it on a little notepad, but it's something about the simplest concept can be explained to them. The most complex, anyway, I don't know what it is, but it can be very, very, very complicated, to somebody who thinks they know everything, and you can give them a simple idea, a simple concept, but if you feel like you already know everything, it's really hard for you to grasp. And what I'm telling you is I'm the same way. And what I know today is that we've got over 100,000 patients that have been very thankful. And one of the other things is when a patient does miss a payment, and we call them on the phone and we say, "Hey, you missed a payment." And the patient says, my son wrecked my car, my air conditioning went out, I don't know what to do. And we go, "Well, let me look at your deal." And I know, Abby, you've done this a lot in the team. Let me look. Well, I see that you have 34 months left on your payments, and you're paying $140. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to 46 months or 43 months? Let's lower your payments down to 120. And let's skip this month. Will that help you? And we've had patients cry. They literally cry on the phone. They go, "Really? You can do that?" "Absolutely. We're here to help you." That's why we call it compassionate finance, because we don't care, and you shouldn't either, because you're going to make more interest over the next 8 months that they pay. It's going to be better for you and better for them. That's a win-win. That's good, doing good while doing good. You think Synchrony Financial is going to tell them that? Synchrony Financial is going to try to get blood out of a turnip. They can't make the payment. They don't have the money. And so they're going to try to rake you over the coals, or they're going to affect your credit rating, which does no good for people who can't afford it. I can't afford to pay it this month. So, I'm going to hose you on your credit scores. I'm going to make it worse for your life. We don't do that. And so that's the best thoughts I have.
Yeah, no, and that's great. Just to reinforce that, when we're implementing compassionate finance into a practice, I mean, we'll even show you with the platform how you can give the patients options. They have an option to select, what do they think that they can afford, and what we have found is delinquency rates plummet because they go way down when you give the patient the option on what can they afford. They honor it.
They do.
And it allows you, to your point, to doing good, because you're giving them the flexibility that they want, and you're honoring it, or allowing them to honor the commitment that they made and what they signed up for. So your case acceptance goes up and your delinquency rates are going to go down.
Beautiful. Anybody have any other questions? If not, I think we're going to call it a night, because my wine glass is getting down low, and I think Neil's ready for a bourbon. And Abby, I don't know what your choice is, but whatever it is, we're all gonna do it. So thank you guys for being on. Neil, thank you for hosting, and Abby, thank you for being on.
Yeah. Hey, Bruce, do we want to have Abby put on the screen real quick how to get a hold of us if anybody needs
Absolutely. Abby,
yeah.
Can you put that on there for him?
And then while she's doing that, I did see that there was one additional question that came in from John.
Great.
I imagine there's a good way to keep track of accounts receivable so you know what is owed on compassionate versus other monies owed.
Yeah, it's beautiful, John. You're on top of this. Let me tell you, and I'll move that out of the way. What you do is, I don't know if you're involved with any PPOs, but many dentists are. You do what's called a PPO write-off, meaning you're going to collect, let's just say that your usual and customary fee is $1,000, and you're going to take, it was discounted to $600. So you write off $400. No matter what you get as a down payment, that's going to go in as what's paid to the patient by the patient, and it's going into the software. You're going to write off the remaining amount, and you're going to write that off to compassionate finance. Why are you going to do that? Because I'm going to tell you, and I'm glad you brought the question up. I'm going to tell you to open up a separate account. It's going to be your account. It's going to be your financing account. And the payments are going to come to you in that account every single month. You don't have to worry about collecting it. It's all collected over here by our team. And it just comes in. And most dentists, you would never even think about having an account that grows $250,000 in a year. You just don't have that in the dental practice. What I do is take that loan and put it over in my own finance company and watch that money grow. And that money grows. And we've had doctors that have bought airplanes, paid off their house, done everything with this. And it's money. And again, I want you to remember, this is money you would have never made. You would have never made this money because patient would have gone to the cheapo depot. Excuse me. Anything else? So that's the way to keep track of accounts receivable. And it's real easy for your accountant to look at that, because you're going to have reporting from us that tells them exactly where it goes. And, is it ordinary income? Yep. Just as if it went into your regular practice account. All right, guys. John, thanks for being on. Thanks everybody for being on. We had a good group tonight. Just let us know if we can help you. We're here.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to view my options here. Oh, I'm going to end right here.